Hello and welcome to Red's Business and Technology Podcast. I'm your host, Jackson Barnes.
And I'm your co-host, Brad Ferris.
And today we're sitting down with Ben Greenup, who's the Director of Technology at Brisbane Boys College. We're discussing today everything around the future of technology and education, touching on a bit of AI, Chat GPT, cybersecurity, and selecting the right partners in the role. Ben, mate, really appreciate you coming in. Did you want to start with your background before and how you got into education and technology?
Thank you, Jackson. Hey, Brad, how we doing?
Very good, thank you.
So I suppose my history in teaching has been a lifelong journey. I've been a teacher for a while, but I suppose teaching and learning has been a focus of mine throughout my schooling and then through university. So I suppose worked both in technology to start with, but
did you study technology at uni or teaching? I
did. First? So first I did multimedia at uni, and that really got me interested in this thing called e-learning. And at the time, I suppose there wasn't any, there was no YouTube. This is before video on the internet. This was learning was done through very simple websites, and you'd click through and that sort of thing. And I was like, this could be really useful. This just needs a bit of wait for the technology to catch up to the ideas. And then, sure enough, as I was graduating my undergrad, YouTube's hitting the stream and teachers are starting to use that. So then I thought, okay, we could do a lot of what a teacher does online with a computer. We could really help this. And I suppose if I'm going to make changes in this industry, I should probably learn how to teach myself. So went and did the postgrad in education, became a teacher, and sort of thought, okay, now I can experience what a teacher's job is, what a teacher does, and couple that with my technology understanding, and just really make the best of both worlds. And
yep, makes a lot of sense. So what was so you went and studied that, and then did it post in education. Then did you start as a teacher, or did you start straight into like IT manager schools?
No, I started in IT support at a school. Okay. There was all two of us in the IT department back then. And you think back to the days when, you'd have 1,500 students and 2 IT guys that somehow managed the whole thing. That was a world ago. So I was the tech at a school for a while I was studying education. So
right, yep.
Then I used those inroads to teach. So when
you finished teaching degree, then you went and taught straight after that?
Yeah, so I did some teaching practice. Cool. Had a crack out in the country to teach in remote schools. And
right. Where'd you go?
I was out west near Moranbah. And
up near my neck of the woods.
Yeah, your old stomping grounds.
Yep.
So that was an experience for a city boy to go up there, and then came back to Brisbane and started teaching in a few schools. And they the jobs of like a multimedia technician at a school sort of interested me. So I went back into that side of the job, and from there I was an AV technician at a school, and that was great. I was just enjoying, the school life, school routine, that sort of thing. And then I kept getting asked to do more and more things. It's like, oh, hang on, you're a teacher, right? Well, how about you take this class? And, oh, hang on, you're pretty good with those computer things. How about we get you doing more and more of them? And then a few years in, tap on the shoulder, oh, we want you running the IT department now. It's like, okay.
Yeah, right.
Just take on each role as they come. And
And what school was that at?
So that was St. Rita's College.
Oh, that was St. Rita's, okay.
I was there for about a decade.
Yep.
So all my formative years in my 30s was St. Rita's College.
Yep.
Awesome school.
Starting as a AV tech, and then doing some teaching, and then running the IT at St. Rita's, and then now what are you doing?
So now I've moved over to Brisbane Boys College, where I'm the Director of Technology Services. Ironically, I started at BBC as an IT integrator back into the e-learning side of things, and then a few weeks into that job got tapped on the shoulder again and said, hey, how about IT directing again? So here I am once more.
Yep, and you're still teaching today as well, though, right? You're not just doing the director of technology; you're also teaching still.
Yeah, I still keep my hand in it to keep those skills up to date, and really, I suppose the cold front of a classroom, being involved in the classroom is just instrumental. I'll learn in a few minutes what the kids are doing, what the teachers are trying to achieve, and then be able to target a technology solution to solve that. All of that done in a matter of minutes. That would take ages if you weren't involved firsthand.
Nigel and I still have a memory of being in, I guess, whatever it was called, computer class. We would have been grade 7 or 8 in BBC, and it was near the chapel. I remember that. And it was the dot matrix green screens. I can't remember what it was called. Nigel will be able to tell you all the tech specs, but had the paper reels that were that long and had the cylinders on the end. Yeah, I remember those class. Nigel's really good.
Was that below the chapel?
Yeah, below the chapel.
Right. Oh, I found that. That's a staff room, that area, and I was digging through the back of it to find the racks and things, and I'm like, wow, this used to be, a lab setup.
Yeah, it was. No, so I mean, I haven't seen an IT classroom in a high school, I guess, literally since I was in high school. So it'd be interesting to contrast it with what it was when I was there 25 years ago or so.
Yeah, because everyone has their own devices now. Even when I was at high school, we didn't have our own laptop. It was just like computer labs you would go to. But now it's from early age.
One of the things I was saying, I was in the boarding house at BBC until 1995. I was in grade 10. Then I'm originally from Canada. I went back to Canada, and I went to a boarding school in Canada. And it was amazing just on the tech. So I was always into tech, and you'd go from those computers that I just described to they had a LAN network. I had a DX 75 megahertz processor laptop with like 8 megabytes of RAM, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. And you could have it in your room. They had like a LAN that you could plug into. You get on the internet in your room. I was like, wow, this is amazing. So I'm sure it's a bit different now.
So then you were editing DJ tracks?
That was the beginning, mate.
That's where it all started.
Yeah.
Well, it actually was, because there was a bit of software that my uncle worked, which is now Logic on Mac. Apple bought it, but it used to be called eMagic MIDI Notator, I think it was called. So you didn't have digital audio, you just had MIDI. So my uncle worked for eMagic before Apple bought them, and he would always give me the copies of the program. And I remember, I think that was the Logic Audio came out, I want to say 97, and that was unbelievable because I was a guitar player as well. And then you had digital signal processing. You could go into your computer, you could add effects, and it was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. So
game changer.
It was a game changer.
It's been fun to watch the transition of technology over time. Like you're saying that the computer labs when you're at school. Well, that's when I started in the in IT at a school, and it was a lab, and then we were starting the first rollout of laptops and the first go at wireless in the classrooms, and then all the questions that we still don't answer quite well of like, oh, well, how are we going to keep these things charged? And where are we going to store these things when they're not using? Aren't the kids just going to keep playing games on them? Like all these questions, they haven't changed in 15, 20 years.
Graphics have just gotten better.
Yeah,
that's it.
Smaller devices, I guess, as well. But that's quite funny. So really looking forward to getting some insights out of you today, Ben. It sounds like basically your whole career has been in that education technology space. So looking forward to it. Let's start with rolling back to COVID-19 and how that changed technology and education.
Yeah, so COVID was a massive disruptor to teaching as we knew it. Forever we've had a teacher in front of a classroom, students there with them, teacher directing what to do and teaching the class. We've had the technology of things like Teams and Zoom and that sort of thing to do video conferencing and to do that. But for a classroom setting, well, that didn't really exist in any full-scale effort. So as far as the disruption to teaching went, it was massive because suddenly teachers need to one, learn how to use all this technology that for a lot of them, and age wasn't a factor in this, just across the board. Your teaching is about your relationship with the student and helping them mostly face-to-face. And now that's being done on a computer. Wow, that's just
huge.
How do you actually do that? how do you get the teachers trained up on how to troubleshoot kids connecting to a class? Because now you've got 30 kids trying to connect, and you can imagine every conversation you have with your mum and dad over the phone. Oh, can you see me now on the video chat? Like that's one-to-one, and you got troubleshooting. Now you're trying to troubleshoot across the board. But
what was it like at St. Rita's? So when you were at St. Rita's and it actually hit, it was battle stations, everyone's screaming at the IT team to get remote working happening and little issues connecting?
The leadership team was extremely effective at responding to it. So we were in the start of the year 2020 looking at this unrolling across the world and going, okay, this is happening. What do we need to do to get prepared? And said, okay, well, at the time we used a Zoom solution for that one. So it's like, okay, we'll get Zoom, tick, we can do that. Get our classes synced with a system so that the class groups are all there. Yep, we can do that. Okay, so ticking all these boxes in preparation, weeks and even months before anything came into effect, we were ready to scale at a minute's notice. We had teachers preparing lessons for the following fortnight, the following week, going, okay, just this lockdown may happen, and it could just be don't come to school tomorrow kind of thing. So prepare your lessons for the next day, the next week, and just keep yourself with this sort of 2-week buffer of lessons, and that worked extremely well. So I remember the training session that I did for teachers, because obviously there was a lot of panic with misinformation around the world, and everyone was at high stresses going, what are we doing about this? So I was standing in front of all the faculty staff and all the teachers and going, okay, this is how you use Zoom, this is how this works. And just the looks on their faces went from this stress to this relief, going, actually, this could work. Yep, okay, I can work with this. And the pieces fitting together and clicking together was all just happening. And I'm sitting there wondering, sitting here reflecting, just going, wow, this was the fastest uptake of any training session. Like, I've done training sessions for years, and you'll have 5-10% that are super keen, and you'll have the rest that are like, we'll use it when we need to, and then people that are not picking it up at all. No, Zoom for COVID prep, 100%. Everyone was like, yep, we're on it, we've got this. And then I'm getting follow-up queries on, well, if I use this, can I make a breakout room from a subgroup of my classes? And then it's like, okay, all right, you're now starting to think of things that I hadn't thought of in preparing for this, and this is awesome. Let's see how we can make this work. So,
yeah, nice.
Get some good creative thinking. I didn't know there was similar for business as well. I remember I've always loved this kind of technology, even going back to like that story before when I moved to that school, and I'm like, wow, I'm on the internet, and this was really cool. And one thing I was always really big on, like I love, since I moved back to Canada, I had friends here. I was always looking, how do you collaborate with people or work with people or keep in touch with people when you're remote? So I'd always love that. So then obviously Teams came out. And one thing I really found, even in business or at work, was people just wouldn't, you had these video chat applications, but nobody would turn their video on. Everyone kind of was, no, I don't really want to do that. But, visual communication is very important. And when you're not face-to-face, in your remote, you need every kind of cue you can get. So visual, audio, the whiteboard or the screen sharing. And so for us, I really struggled. I'd get really frustrated, actually. I said, everyone in Red, you must have your camera on if you turn up to a video meeting. But clients, vendors, like people wouldn't turn the camera on.
Early in the stage, I agree. It was very much like 50-50 whether people were going to turn camera on or just do a chat and video, and you're already missing the human element, so it really put a hindrance on things. Just
really hindered communication. And then that was the one thing I really liked out of COVID was like it became standard and common practice, and almost it was kind of weird if you didn't turn your camera on.
Yeah.
So that really helped. In business, so that was one good thing out of COVID for us in terms of the web conferencing and things like that.
And now I think everyone is pretty much, everyone on Teams meeting with a camera, because all the technology's got good cameras that work, and everyone's got meeting rooms and that kind of thing. So there's always cameras on, and it's a good spot it's in now. So, but pivoting a little bit to a topic that's pretty hot right now around AI in schools, or in particular Chat GPT has really come out and done a lot.
Wow.
So to give a little insight into that for people listening, everyone probably has heard it, but if not, it's essentially an AI algorithm. It's super, super smart, like a chatbot that's been developed by a company called OpenAI, where you can feed information and then say things like, shorten this to this many words, write me a blog on this, for example, and you can tailor it and talk back to it is the real key into it. But I imagine education that's going to change probably already has changed how students are doing essays and that kind of thing. So what are you seeing, Ben?
Well, I'm seeing some very, very positive responses to this. I reflected upon, or rather, I think back to your Wikipedias and your Google searches from the 90s and early 2000s, right? That was, people are plagiarizing assignments by just grabbing it off Wikipedia. And at that time, that was a game-changing moment for education. It was, how do we respond to this? And it was, we don't trust it, and it's not good, and it's not rigorous and that sort of thing. Fast forward to now, if you look up anything, you're going to read the Wikipedia article. It's probably more accurate than some website that the company's written. You want that peer moderated type thing. I think this chatbot stuff's going to be the next step of that. I was playing around with it last night, just having it write songs about my dogs, and I would just say, write me a song about my fluffy dog Felix, and off it went, and it was this
any good ones?
six verses and chorus and everything, and I'm just like, this is impressive. This can only get better, and this can be used for so many things. So
it's really impressive. Maybe we should do a new theme song, Brad, for the podcast. See what it comes back with.
Well, yeah, load up chatbot and see what it does.
Write me a song about Jackson Barnes.
Yeah.
So what are you seeing as the good and the bad out of ChatGPT in education?
So the obvious bad is, we can use that to cheat. We can use that to go, write me an essay on whatever Australian history and give me it in a response of a Year 9 student. You can have its responses tailored down to exactly what you want to hear. So it doesn't become this university level type response that you might have got in the past. Your answer is
somewhat realistic.
It is. So there's potential for that to be used. The counter side of that is that the plagiarism scanning technology is aware of this, and they're writing things to detect when an AI has been used on a piece of text. So
I did see that a couple of days ago, which is pretty quick in response to when this is actually being released. But that's definitely a good thing. So required.
It's quick in response for us, but we've got to remember this hit. So US have been dealing with this over Christmas and December.
Yeah. And so there's software to detect plagiarism that the schools use now as well?
Yeah, so we use a Similarity Checker built into our learning management system, which is awesome. And if you upload a PDF file or a Word document of anything, it's going to scan it for similarities, and that will help detect whether there's plagiarism.
So there you go. Times have changed.
That's it. Yeah, you wouldn't be able to. I suppose I think back, wonder what my marks would have been like had I not been able to
lean on tech. I did see the thing I saw a couple of days ago was that basically it was a bit of software built to detect any phrase in a essay, for example, that has been written by AI, and it was really, really accurate.
Well, I suppose with all these open APIs and ways of it to communicate, it's just one system looking at another system, and it goes, oh yeah, that was from me. We've got signatures throughout it, right?
Yeah.
So.
On a scarier side, I did see that people have been using ChatGPT to write code for malware as a service and ransomware hits, that kind of stuff. Did you see any of that?
I did, and on both sides of it. So now we've got AI writing the tools to hack and the viruses, and then we've got AI writing the virus scanning. So it's just computers versus computers, and who's going to win. Similarly with the school thing, right? So from a teacher side of things, you can use the chat AI to interpret a rubric to mark a student's work. You could submit a file and say, using this criteria, what grade would you give Jackson?
I didn't think about that.
Yes. So now you've got the kid doing the work using an AI to generate it, and the teacher doing an AI to mark it, and no one's done any work, and we all can sit
turned
back.
up, went home.
I did hear it was interesting. I was reading or listening, watching, I can't remember, a conversation around your example about music. and writing music, and who's going to own the copyright, and who's going to own all the rights to it if the AI writes the music. And I guess it was, well, whoever told it to write it, I suppose. But it's a bit of a philosophical / legal question there, I suppose.
Well, that's not unsimilar to, was it the monkey or the ape that took a photo of itself, and then there was discussion over whose intellectual property that was, because it wasn't the photographer, because he didn't take the photo, but he owned the camera. And so
Interesting.
So it is pretty scary, I guess, and exciting how that's going to change. Do you think they're going to teach AI in schools? Is that part of the curriculum going to change to be AI and how you use it? Because from what I've noticed, it used to be like we want to teach coding to kids, that kind of thing, and then is coding getting less important because you can just get AI to write your code for something, right? Or is it going to teach AI and then how you use that AI for realistic, monetary benefits or business or solving problems?
So I suppose there's two separate ways to view it, this one. So learning to code is not so much about learning to be a programmer. Learning to code teaches you those fundamental problem-solving skills and logical thinking that pays dividends in any career. So that skill should still be learnt, and it doesn't matter what code you're learning, doesn't matter what program it is or what you're coding, just that experience of coding and doing that exercise is phenomenally important. So that should always continue. Similarly, how maths has continued, even though we have Excel and calculators. So those skills will still carry on. But learning AI as a topic, learning AI as how to use it, how to wield it, that's exactly what we should be teaching. And that's the part of education that I get really passionate about is how are we preparing this generation and the next generation to a world with technology, to a world that we're not familiar with, that we're just fumbling our way through. How are we going to prepare them for this? Like thinking back to my career, like my job didn't exist when I was at school. Integrating IT in a school was not was not done. It was like that was part of someone's job or something. But it as an industry, e-learning wasn't there, and now it is. So what's going to happen in the future is going to be pretty awesome to watch, and I like being right on the forefront of that. And
definitely.
That's pretty exciting, because I know a big thing now when you're picking a school is like how good's the robotics program and coding program, for example. So it's going to change.
Ours
how
is
good's
exceptionally
the AI.
good, by the way.
Yeah. That's how good is the AI learning as well. So let's roll back to education. You've been essentially in education, teaching or running IT teams for 15 years now. What did it look like when you first started, maybe 10 years ago in IT? Was it just computer labs, and what did it look like back then compared to now?
Yeah, so back then it was computer labs. Like laptops existed, and there was not many of them. They were expensive. Their batteries didn't last long, and wireless technology was terrible. I mean, it's 2.4 gig. You couldn't have more than half a dozen rooms with an access point before overlapping was an issue, and suddenly, you just couldn't handle that load. It was fine in smaller groups, but so technology at schools was computer labs, and not in every classroom. It was you would go to the computer lab, right? That's in.
I remember that in uni actually. I would go in the computer lab. Yeah.
Did you and then what else? What other changes have you seen over the time? You would have. Something that was a bit interesting is like the interactive touch panel space, which I dabbled in maybe like 8-10 years ago into schools, where it was like a hype for a little bit, and they were teaching it as part of the university curriculum, and then the take up for teachers hasn't really been there. What's that space looking like now?
Yes, I suppose you're entering the classroom AV, as we call it now. So you have technology in the classroom to assist the teacher in presenting, and often that's done with just a projector in the room or an interactive projector, or like we have here, a panel on the wall. So that technology has certainly improved across schools and over the years. Like projectors get brighter, laser projectors last longer. The quality is getting there. We used to have to turn the lights off in the room so you could see the projection on the pull-down screen. Those days are gone with these ultra bright interactives that that are clear as day.
Yeah, and a lot cheaper now as well. From what I've noticed is that when the interactive touch panel ITP kind of first hit education, it was quite expensive, like 8-10 grand for a panel kind of thing. Where it's really come down a lot now, just because of technology assisting that. So
it was massively expensive and took up so much space in the room. Like we've been redesigning some interactive spaces at BBC in our middle school to demonstrate what the what technology in a classroom could look like now. And it's an interactive panel, but rather than take down the whiteboard and put up the panel, the interactive panel is going on the wall that was where the windows are. So in the past, you wouldn't be able to do that because the glare from behind the windows would have been too much. But with a nice bright television, that's not an issue. So now we've literally got another wall to play with when it comes to instruction. You've got whiteboards either side and interactive on the window.
Yeah, right.
So you got technology coming all over the place.
Yeah, every angle, literally.
We did joke about this. Technology is everything in the school, so you get lumped with a lot of jobs, I'm sure. So part of your what you've done probably the last 10 or so years is selecting the right technology partners and offerings. Have you got any advice you can share for people listening on how to select the right IT partner or tool for a school?
Advice on your partners. Well, there's a lot of people that want to get involved. There's a lot of businesses out there that do this sort of thing, and finding a partner that has the same sort of thinking as you, the same sort of values, that's really where a good partner lies. It's working out fundamentally what is it that we're trying to achieve through this partnership. What is it that we get out? What is it that they're getting out? And is it just a transactional thing? Is it just money changing hands? Well, then that's not really the value add that I particularly want to see. I want skin in the game from the other side to say, okay, our name's on the board there with you, and we're not just selling you the tech. We're not just dropping it off and dusting our hands. We're in the thick of it with you.
That's a good advice, and I imagine a lot of stuff you get would be like laptops, for example, which is a big part of technology or education. In education, you can kind of get from anywhere, right? This is just the same thing from a person. So how do you go choosing who you would partner with in that space?
So that space comes down to, I suppose, a lot of, are they able to deliver when we need them to deliver? Like a lot of laptops need to arrive on the doorstep at the right time. We can't delay the start of the year for there not being laptops. We need the right technology that the kids want to use, that the teachers want to use. So we need a lot of user engagement with selecting the model. But at the same time, we're not a bring your own device school. We as experts and educators and technology professionals, I would dare say we know better as to what technology should be there. So we're researching whether it's a Lenovo or a HP or a Surface or a Mac. We're looking at all the different options from a repairability standpoint. What's our warranty? What's the accidental damage protection? Because believe it or not, teenage boys aren't the most
gentle with their devices.
Yes. So having those boxes ticked as to what makes a good device, having a battery that's going to last the school day, having just having the right device.
Is the school providing mobile devices as well, or is it just kind of a laptop?
No, it's just a laptop at this stage. I mean, we've got like iPads in the junior school area, down in Prep 1 and 2.
And you mentioned no BYOD, so no, they can't bring their own iPad or something like that?
Well, they could bring it, and connect it to our wireless, which would nicely segregate it to a dirty wireless network, and they can still get a connection, but
not access the kind of educational content.
Well, interestingly, all of that is online now, right?
Okay, so they can.
There's very little. Actually, there's nothing that a student accesses from our internal network without going via the internet. Via filtering, right? So
you brought back some horrible memories, Ben, when you mentioned the delay of getting laptops in time. I was also working in that space with a lot of schools, and I remember in that year 2020 when the delay on hardware, for example, with certain models and suppliers was like 6 to 9 months. So I remember going to these schools and they hadn't even thought about like getting ready for the next year, and they needed to order basically like in June to get their stuff in time for January next year kickoff. Is that kind of what you experienced as well?
Jackson, you're bringing flashbacks. Funnily enough, this time last year, right? This was today. In the last couple of days, we've been dishing out laptops to the students that need their laptops changed. So we do like a 3-year cycle, right? So the year 7s and 10s are getting their laptops swapped around, and we're sitting there going, oh, remember last year? What were we doing? Oh, that's right. We were in lockdown. Our laptops had just arrived the week before off the truck from the, and we're sitting there going, this is a whole lot of a much smoother start to the year when we had our laptops delivered weeks ago, and so we were right in the thick of that. At the end of 2020, I get a call. Oh, those laptops have been they might not arrive until February. I said, well, school doesn't not start. Just like, hang on. This is my first year as a director here at BBC. I'm not going to be the guy that didn't deliver laptops at the start of the year.
Yep. Yeah, that was a wild time. I do remember that, and it was just such a people cancelling orders and changing orders and going to different branches so they can get it in time. Yep. It was like the process you've explained before about what's the best support and ADP and teach you that went out the window. I was like, who can get me stuff by January? By January.
And to their credit, our primary supplier is Lenovo, and they delivered, and we got what we needed, and that plays into why we have selected them in the past and continue to do so, is because they do and did deliver. So those relationships, being able to lean on them and going, oh, actually, remember how we're potentially the largest educational customer, and the one that you like to demonstrate to other potential clients. Well, yes.
You're drawing some of those cards. Get us our stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can only play the cards you dealt, right?
Yep. Yeah. So apart from rolling back to now, past when it's obviously a lot better now, the supply constraints, for anyone listening, that was primarily because of the IC chip shortage, and there was screen shortages, and there was a bucket load of just hardware constraint from COVID and factories being shut down and closed overseas. But rolling forward to now, what's keeping you up, or not so much you, but more heads of IT in schools in the Brisbane area at night?
Well, I suppose in any industry, it should be cybersecurity as the one that I suppose you want to be prepared for. We're in a world where attacks and stuff happen, and it's no longer the days of women and children are safe for this sort of crime. It's anyone that can pay will try and get. So that is obviously a big factor in my mind of, okay, how prepared are we for a response? How prepared are we for protecting and that sort of...
Okay. What other advice would you have for other heads of IT at other schools around cybersecurity to try and mitigate that concern?
Definitely engage with other people, experts in the field. Like, you don't have to be the knowledge base of everything. You don't have to be a cybersecurity expert to know that you need a cybersecurity expert. So either hire one, find one, partner with one, get some advice on cybersecurity as to how you can benchmark what you've got, what you can improve, and then start chipping away at it. Almost any action in that area is probably going to pay down the track, right? So
that's good advice, and it's funny the evolution of school IT, right? There was no IT team, then it was just like one person with like 2 computer labs to look after, and now it's this big team, and now they're looking at cyber as well, as it kind of falls under the IT team. So it's crazy how it's evolved.
The old saying, if it plugs into a wall, then it's an IT problem.
Yeah.
That's ringing true. Just because these cyber crimes are happening on the computer doesn't mean it's just IT's problem. This is a organizational wide effort that needs to be made, and
that's not just education. A lot of businesses are like that. If they have internal IT teams, they kind of, and even us who are being responsible for businesses IT, but just on the support side, they kind of we get lumped with the security element as well. So it's common across every industry right now, but I think that's going to change rapidly this year, just from all the breaches that happened in the last year and all the large sticks and compliances that's getting pointed at directors and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so we like to not waste a good disaster every now and then, and one of the big with the recent hacks, like we were rolling out multi-factor authentication to all our staff at that around that sort of time, and it was just so timely that happened, and staff went, "Oh, good, yeah, well that's the right response for this sort of thing. I'll accept that." I can imagine, 5 years ago, if I had pushed an MFA solution for staff, they would have
been up in arms.
That's right.
Yeah, right.
Now it's just become, oh yes, I accept that.
Where's my
happen.
MFA? Come on.
Yeah, you alluded to this before, but teachers typically don't like change very much. So imagine,
Jackson, I don't think anyone likes change. So.
True. That is true. So putting MFA on before all this stuff would have been a battle. So yeah, that's interesting. Brad, any questions you got before? I've got a couple more I want to ask. But
No, I'm good. I'll
you good?
just follow your lead, mate.
Okay, I want to touch on the next topic I want to touch on, Ben, was gaming and esports in schools. And this was definitely not a thing, I imagine, 10 years ago. And not something that we're fully across here, but what's that industry doing in schools? Because I know they are encouraging it now. There's competitions. There's
Not you and me particularly, but I know some of the other guys are.
Other guys at Red for sure.
For sure. Yeah.
But what's happening in that industry? Is it being encouraged by schools? What does that kind of scene look like now compared to 5 years ago?
So it's come a long way since those early days of just gaming and computer labs and that sort of thing. It's becoming a lot more structured, and with all the, I suppose, public perception of esports, it's such a massive industry, right? Like it's larger than many of the other sporting codes.
It blows my mind.
And that has paid. So the schools are reflecting that and going, okay, well, actually, this is legitimate. This isn't just for fun. This is training. This is rigorous. This has legs, and so that's getting a whole lot of support as a legitimate sport. So,
what does it look like? Like, what's day to day in esports in high school?
Well, so you got to start with a game that's scalable, that's accessible. So Rocket League and League of Legends are typically the easiest ones to kick off, and they're familiar. So
it's this kind of, instead of PE class, you go to esports class?
Well, it's more, this is like a co-curricular activity, right?
So outside of school hours.
Outside of school hours,
Okay.
you come and you learn and you train on League of Legends, you train on Rocket League. And
So they come back into the school and then train
so
for
instead
esports?
of going to rugby training, like, the after school.
Yeah, as well as. So the BBC does the, as you may remember, the tartan style of extracurricular stuff. So you've got your sports and, so you've got a whole lot of bits
Options,
and pieces that fit together. And this is just one of those options, and being very heavily driven by some key staff members that aren't IT staff, which is great when it's again, this isn't IT driving it, this is IT supporting it. And,
So I assume you still have the same kind of good qualities that usual sport would, right? Like that team camaraderie and, going and doing something with your peers that's similar, like being in the same music class, that kind of thing.
Absolutely, if not even more so, because unlike a sport where you're watching it in the distance, you're watching a team play over on the field, with the streaming technology now, you're watching the gamer's point of view when you're watching their stream. You're not just... So it's as though you're kind of in it. You're immersed in the...
So are they playing other schools?
Yes, so they have comps that they attend.
Like in the GPS schools, they'll play esports against each other?
Exactly. I don't believe there's a GPS comp yet. There's other schools that have started comps, and they all compete together with them. So
cool.
So there's a BBC esports team for a game, and they versus another school's team?
Correct,
Yes.
yes.
Is it same by age?
I'm not sure how those logistics work. I think I think it's per game. And
what are the prizes for that stuff?
Just trying to think. There was a lot of sponsorship from Lenovo with their Legion fleet of gaming devices. So, there's a lot of external prizes that they get for gaming kit, and
it's cool.
How big is that scene? So there's competitions you go to where you would go. So you would invite another school to BBC, and then you would have a competition where your prize is the thing. And how many people attend? Is it like displayed so everyone can see it, or people will just watch the stream? What does that look like?
Both, yeah. So they do it in like an open area, and as well as streaming it. So
right. You've been to a few?
Not
to watch?
Not with COVID interrupting everything.
Yeah,
so,
okay.
Does BBC still do the lines and the colours and all that on the blazers?
They do. So we haven't got the esports one there yet, but that'd be what I'd like to see. Is just a real.
Yeah, it's cool.
Esports blazer. Yeah.
Oh, it's like you're saying before, like, 20 years ago, what was it? This would, if you said something like this, it would just, no way, not be reality. But now here we are, right? And so, what is it? How's that going to evolve? What's that going to look like in 5 years, 10 years, etc.? And then what's next? So, yeah, it's cool.
What do you think the future is going to look like for esports? So, is it going to have, statewide championships with more schools going and competing, or what's that space going to look like?
Yeah, I'd see it at a much larger scale, more involvement, so more games, more accessible games, games targeted at the school level. So having, I suppose, more exposure at an earlier age to this sort of thing is really what it's going to grow towards. We'll have, I suppose, accessibility to the technology. Like, it may not be on a laptop in 5 years' time. It probably won't be. It'll be on some device that we haven't thought of.
It'll be, what is it? What's the Facebook thing? The metaverse.
In the metaverse,
yeah.
The headsets. Wow, they got to ditch the
stores.
headsets. They got to find a way to not have to wear this 5 kilo thing on your head.
Yeah. Well, that would look funny. A bunch of kids with this there anyway.
Well, think about your classroom going to that sort of level of tech.
Yeah.
If you're able to get full immersion in a virtual environment, then
It'll be like the glasses. I mean, I still haven't. I know they're out there, but I haven't really seen it. Like
the HoloLens and
Well, we've got the HoloLens. The problem I find with they are quite bulky, but even we've got the VR room. But now, even since when we bought that 2 or 3 years ago, it's changed. So you don't need the sensors around the room. You can just wear the headset, and you've got the HoloLens. So, but they're still quite bulky, and I know this is a problem that what Facebook has with their metaverse attempt. It's like you got to wear this big thing on your head, mate. It's not really.
Yeah.
But if you can get to the glasses, if you can get it down to a glass, or
once it becomes a weight issue, and I suppose that's a big factor. Like we have VR headsets in our junior school. They're used. They're a pretty impressive device for what it is. It's a class VR set, and the teacher can direct a group of students to be viewing the same thing, or it's a 3D model held with a merged cube in your hand, and you can manipulate it. A lot of that content is still in its very early days of quality, and I just look forward to that being more accessible and
mobile, right? Like, so
mobile,
it's kind of like it's come a long way. Like Craig's got the headset, we've got the HoloLens, and it's a lot more portable than it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, but it's still, compared to something like this or an iPad or a laptop, it's still arguably bulky compared to its kind of competitors in that tech gadget space.
So rolling back, Ben, so is at BBC currently, is it like a co-curricular activity that the students can opt into to go play an e-sport or practice an e-sport, where on like a list where they would select like violin and rugby and cricket and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, effectively, yes. So the esports was a trial that was started this time last year by a group of staff.
So it's quite new.
Very new, for BBC. So we've been effectively getting prepared. The students still love to practice in their own time, right?
Yeah.
So that's quite good.
They probably already are, right? And if they're already doing that, it kind of makes it. It does make sense actually when I think about it, that they're probably going to be playing video games at home anyway. And if they can do that as part of the school kind of curriculum with their classmates and get a bit more, culture around it, that
structured.
It's getting structured.
Yeah.
It's getting. You think you could play soccer at home, right? But if you have a coach, then you improve.
Oh, so it's actually like coaching for people.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's it. So
I feel like I know nothing about that. That's cool. All right, so rolling back to general technology. Now, you've been in education and technology for 15 years now. What do you think it's going to look like in another 10, 15 years?
I think the technology is going to, become more hidden, right? So at the moment, we have technology in your hand, in your laptop, and that sort of thing. Like this. These things are getting smaller, lighter, transparent, and integrated with the wall, integrated with the table. Like the technology, you may not even see; it'll just be there,
built in, so to speak.
Yeah. So I see a lot of less visible technology coming into play, and it just all working in the background. And you might walk into a room and just start talking, and the technology turns on because it knows that. That's what you want it to do. And like there's, I suppose, that automated type assistance technology is really just starting to kick off. Like I like it on my phone when you get a call and you can ask Google to screen the call for you, and it starts answering it and
So you-
take the message for you. So,
So you think that it's still going to be robotics and coding and probably maybe some AI that people are going to teach, but AI might change the way that the other technology in the classroom, for example, operates?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's where it's headed. Like I think we've still got a fair while to go with these laptops. They're not going anywhere super quick. There you go. We can take the date on record that Ben said laptops weren't going away.
Yeah.
And then,
Look, I agree with you. I've got all of the watch, the phone. I mean, I'm an Apple boy. I'm in the ecosystem. But the watch, phone, and I've got the iPad in the middle. And I just, whichever's best for the task, whichever format best suits the task. But the laptop is the workhorse.
Yeah.
It's the content creator, whereas I'm more consuming, reading, etc. on the other devices.
yeah. So what happens when now you can consume and read without the device because it's just in your earbuds or on your headset? So then you don't
Elon
need
Musk, brain chip.
the brain chip yet downloaded.
There'll be something like a
Implanted.
contact lens or something that will allow you. Like, so if you don't wear glasses, you don't want to wear glasses. I can't see it past the scope of imagination where you just put a contact on and you could read.
Yeah. Or maybe it's the step in between. The phones are getting so smart and powerful now. Maybe it's just plug that into a screen and that's what you work off in a classroom. There's like an interim. Apart from
Oh,
that,
they do have that. Like,
always
you
there,
can't do that with the iPads. I just hope
Yeah.
it doesn't end up like that movie, Terminator 2, mate. Skynet. What year was Skynet? Wasn't it 2030 or 2050?
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, let's
Go
go
check
back.
that out.
I think it was a while ago, actually. I think we passed.
Have we
what's
passed
Skynet?
Skynet?
We passed
maybe.
Skynet.
Oh,
So
well, we
Yeah.
won that one, I guess.
I think maybe we did.
Maybe.
Aren't we in the simulation?
Oh, I
Isn't
don't know.
that the-
Or are we in the Matrix? I
we
don't know.
might be in the wrong podcast for that. So.
Yeah. All right, mate, conscious of time. Thanks, Ben. Really appreciate you coming in. You share some good insights around the future of technology and cybersecurity and AI. Hopefully listeners get a lot of value out of this. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Jackson. Thanks.
Thanks, man.